Hello, WIARS Conference. I'm Dr. Marilyn Carroll, faculty at Strayer University and founder of Carroll Beck LLC. Today, I'm presenting research from a 4-quarter longitudinal study conducted in BEST 1000 Introduction to Business, Strayer's highest enrollment gateway course. The question driving this work is simple but consequential. Why do AI-enabled diagnostic tools fail to sustain student persistence at scale, and what does it take to make them work? Gateway courses are where degrees are won or lost. At Strayer, Busey-Ness 100 enrolls over 1,000 students per quarter, and historically, we watched engagement fall off a cliff in weeks 7 through 10, right when major writing assignments clustered together. The institutional response has been more technology, dashboards, early alert flags, and at-risk reports. And those tools are useful. They tell the faculty who missed an assignment. Let me ground you in the scope of this study. We followed Busey-Ness 100 across 4 consecutive quarters, from a pilot of about 500 students through a large-scale deployment of approximately 1,400. In total, we analyzed more than 2,700 student records using a mixed methods longitudinal design, combining assignment submission rates, archetype classification data, and attendance records with qualitative analysis of student voice instruments, the midterm check-in and end-of-term S-curve reflections. And the pattern was consistent across every quarter: strong starts, then a predictable drop in weeks 7 through 10. Beyond the classroom, the Learning Archetype Assessment has been completed by more than 60,000 users on the Open Access Empowered It Pro platform, giving us external validation data at a scale most classroom instruments never reach. This study is built on a governance framework I developed, the Human Governed AI Operating Architecture, HGAAOA. Most frameworks treat governance as a compliance layer, ethics policies, audit requirements, oversight committees applied after the fact. HGAAOA reconceptualizes governance as an execution layer property, something that must be embedded inside the workflows through which AI-generated insights become human decisions. The domain-specific instantiation of HGIOA in higher education is the Structured Governance Integration Model, SGIM. And SCIM reframes the central question from how accurate is the AI to how well governed are its outputs. That shift is everything. SCIM operationalizes HGAIOA through 4 integrated layers, each one resolving a distinct governance question at the point of instructional execution. The diagnostic layer is where AI does its work. The decision layer is where governance rules translate those diagnostic outputs into allowable instructional responses. It defines which interventions are authorized for each archetype, when to escalate to institutional coaching, and which equity constraints apply. The execution layer is where the faculty member acts through personalized outreach, assignment scaffolding, and resource referrals. This is the site of human accountability. AI informs, humans execute, and the feedback layer closes the loop. Student voice data, submission rates, archetype to completion correlations, all of it feeds back into governance rule refinement each term. SGIM doesn't sit still. It learns. The diagnostic engine of SGIM's first layer is the Learning Archetype Assessment, a 12-item instrument that classifies students into 5 profiles based on motivational disposition, behavioral tendency, psychological capital level, and persistence risk. These archetypes are not labels, they are governance-aligned profiles. Each one maps directly to a set of authorized interventions in the decision layer. The sleeper is our highest risk student, low engagement, low self efficacy, minimal submission activity. The crawler is inconsistent and low in confidence. They respond to scaffolding and encouragement. The walker is capable but inconsistent. Accountability nudges and deadline reminders move them. The jogger is motivated and generally on track. Recognition and community connection keep them there. And the runner is proactive and self directed. They benefit from stretch challenges and leadership opportunities. What makes this instrument powerful is not the classification itself, it's that each archetype unlocks a governed, pre authorized response. That's the governance logic that distinguishes SGEM from every early alert model that came before it. Now to the findings. The headline result is this. As enrollment tripled from approximately 500 students in quarter 1 to approximately 1,400 in quarter 3, a 180% increase. Completion rates held steady at approximately 90% across 3 consecutive. Two numbers on the right side of this slide deserve particular attention. First, only 6 new students who completed both intake instruments in quarter 3 failed to finish the course. 6 out of approximately 1,400 enrolled. The diagnostic completion itself was the single strongest predictor of persistence. Second, 95.6% of enrolled students began the course actively. The governance architecture has been working since week 1. This slide is where the problem becomes undeniable. Look at the baseline. Weeks 2 through 6, non-submissions hovering between 72 and 80 students. Consistent, manageable, expected. Then week 7 hits 234 non-submissions. Week 9, 251. Week 10, 2009. That's nearly 3 times the early term baseline, and it happens like clockwork every quarter. Why? 2 reasons for working together. First, weeks 4 through 6 are quiz heavy, and 3 consecutive weeks of quiz focused work depletes writing momentum and cognitive capacity right before the high stakes writing window opens. That's cognitive load theory playing out in real time, exactly as Mayer predicted. Second, 3 major writing assignments cluster in 4 weeks. Structurally, students are set up to struggle. But here's the critical reframe. This is not a student motivation problem. It is not a course design flaw. It is a governance failure. The quantitative data tells us what happened. The student voice data tells us why, and more importantly, what to do next. The BUS 1000 midterm check-in is a 5-question open-ended reflection administered at the midpoint of every quarter. And in SCIM, it isn't just a satisfaction survey. It's a formal input to the feedback layer, meaning the themes that emerge directly update the governance rules for the following term. Students were consistent across all quarters. What helped most? The assignments themselves, professor feedback, live sessions, and personalized outreach. What did they ask for? Clearer templates, more frequent reminders, and worked examples. Every one of those requests became a decision layer update, clearer instructions embedded in the assignment design, outreach timing adjusted, scaffolding added. This bidirectional accountability, where student voice shapes the governance rules that govern faculty action, is one of the most distinctive features of the SGIM model. The students aren't just subjects of the intervention, they're co-architects of its refinement. So what do these findings mean? 3 things, stated plainly. First, this is not about better prediction. The edtech industry has spent years chasing more accurate models, better algorithms, and smarter dashboards. But the evidence from this study is unambiguous. Better prediction without governance produces no meaningful change in outcomes. Second, this does not scale through individual faculty effort. What allowed completion rates to hold steady as enrollment tripled wasn't one exceptional instructor working harder. It was governance rules, predefined, consistently applied, equity conscious, that ensured every student received a governed response regardless of section, instructor, or term. And third, late term attrition is preventable. The spikes in week 7 through 10 are not inevitable. They are the predictable result of a governance gap. Close the gap, and you close the attrition window. The implications extend well beyond BUS 100. For institutions, SCIM offers a replicable model for improving gateway outcomes without proportional increases in faculty headcount. For researchers, it positions governance as an independent variable in AI effectiveness research, a direction the literature has not yet pursued. And for the EdTech field, 60,000 open access users of the Learning Archetype Assessment signal real market demand, and SGIM provides the governance architecture to deploy at that scale responsibly. The findings point to 5 concrete institutional recommendations, and I want to be precise about how these are framed. These are not suggestions, they are governance specifications. First, rebalance the writing assignments. Second, mandate that the learning archetype assessment be completed in week 1 for every student. The data is clear. Assessment completion is the single strongest predictor of persistence. It cannot be optional. Third, establish a dedicated coaching track for repeat and priority students. This population is the highest risk and the least likely to complete the diagnostic intake. They need assigned coaches, weekly professor plus coach outreach, and consequence informed communication, defined as an execution layer protocol rather than left to individual faculty discretion. Fourth, formalize the midterm check in as a feedback layer governance instrument. And fifth, govern the live sessions. Coffee and Conversations, Momentum Tuesdays, Saturday Know How, these are not optional supplements. They are governance specified integration anchors, and they should be treated as such with required recordings and automated reminder sequences as built in accessibility provisions. I want to leave you with the finding that matters most. AI effectiveness in higher education is not primarily a function of model capability, it is a function of governance. We sustained approximately 90% completion rates across 3 consecutive quarters as enrollment tripled. We did it not because the learning archetype assessment is uniquely powerful, but because the governance architecture surrounding it ensured that every AI generated insight became a timely, equitable, human executed action. The numbers tell that story. 3 future research directions follow from this work. First, longitudinal tracking to determine whether SGIM completion predicts program graduation, not just course completion. Second, refined coaching protocols specifically designed for our highest risk subgroups. And third, the responsible integration of AI governed nudges at scale with tens of thousands of learners. That last direction is where HGAIOA and Authorios come in because governing AI at that scale requires architecture, not just intention. To every institution still waiting for a better algorithm, I'd invite you to consider that the governance infrastructure may already be the missing variable. Thank you for your time today.